Are you tired of feeling like your teenager just won't listen? Do you give the same lectures over and over only to see no change in their behavior? What if I told you the problem isn't what you're saying, but how you're saying it? Hi, I'm Andy Earl. After years as a researcher studying teenage behavior, I started the Talking to Teen podcast, where I've interviewed over 300 of the world's leading experts on communication, parenting, and adolescence. I've discovered the number one mistake parents make when trying to change their teen's mind: delivering information instead of insight. You caught your teen sneaking out past curfew and you're furious. Your first instinct might be to ground them, to take away their phone, or to jump into a lecture about what were you thinking. But none of this will actually change the way your teenager thinks about curfews. To create a real insight, we need to understand their current perspective and then challenge it. For instance, maybe they see their curfew as just a way for you to control them or keep tabs on them, or they think it's unnecessary because none of their friends have one. We need to help them see curfews in a new light. For example, you could help them see that a curfew isn't a restriction, it's a tool to help them. It's like training wheels on a bike. The idea isn't to keep them on forever or for them to feel restricting. It's to keep you from falling over while you get the hang of riding for yourself. The whole point of a curfew is to get rid of it as you're more and more able to handle your own life. You wouldn't get mad at your parents for giving you training wheels, so why are you getting mad at us for giving you a curfew? When we can actually change the way our teenager thinks about something rather than trying to just force them to do things our way, we are communicating insight rather than just information. So how can we do that consistently? That's where the insight equation comes in. In my work with authors and thought leaders at my ghostwriting company, we've analyzed hundreds of books looking at how ideas are positioned, structured, and received by audiences. What we found is that the most impactful ideas all share certain key characteristics. It's not just about the content of the message, but how it's framed and delivered. As we codified these patterns, a formula began to emerge, a recipe for transforming minds through communication. We call it the insight equation. It looks like this: I equals RS over BC. Insight equals relevance times shift over blame times complexity. To make your message more insightful, you have to make it feel relevant to your teenager, challenge them to shift their beliefs, avoid blaming them or triggering a defensive reaction, and reduce the complexity as much as possible. Combine these four factors and your words will start to feel more insightful. What's amazing is this formula doesn't just apply to best-selling authors, it applies to all communication, especially parents. Let's break down what these four variables mean and how they work together. The insight equation is a formula for making your ideas more impactful based on decades of psychology research. I stands for insight. It's the degree to which your message transforms your listener's understanding. And it's determined by four key variables. R stands for relevance. That's the degree to which your message feels not just important, but personally meaningful to your audience. S is for shift. That's the degree to which your message challenges and updates someone's existing beliefs. B stands for blame, which you want to minimize. It's about framing your message in a way that avoids triggering defensiveness or resistance. And C is for complexity, which you also want to keep low. That's about streamlining your ideas to make them as easy as possible to grasp and remember. So the full equation is I equals RS over BC. When you optimize these four factors, maximizing relevance and shift while minimizing blame and complexity, you create the conditions for insight. You make it possible for your words to spark a genuine perspective transformation. So that's an overview of the insight equation. Now, let's dive deeper into each individual variable. I'll start with relevance, and this will help us see why it's so hard to get our teenagers to care about the things that are important to us. Imagine you're trying to get your teenager to take up a musical instrument. You go on and on about discipline, creativity, and brain development. But to your teen, it just feels like another chore on their endless to-do list. The problem is you're focusing on what you think is important, not what matters to them. Research shows that people pay more attention to information that connects with their existing goals and interests. So instead of a lecture on the benefits of music, try tapping into something your teenager already cares about, like their social life. Hey, I noticed a lot of your friends are in the band. Seems like they have a lot of fun together. Would you want to try an instrument yourself so you can have an activity to share with them? So that's relevance, and that gets your teens' attention. But to actually change their mind about something, you need to also challenge their existing beliefs. And that's where shift comes in. Imagine you're arguing with your teen about going to a concert. They think you're being way too strict. And every word you say, they start taking it as evidence about how totally unfair you are. We need to change our approach here. To help them learn a lesson and think differently about this going forward, you need to start by understanding more about their current perspective. Ask them questions about their view of the conversation you're having. Hey, what do you think I'm trying to say here? How does this feel from your perspective? By starting with genuine curiosity about their experience, you create an opening to suggest a new way of thinking about it. I totally hear you saying that it feels like I'm trying to control you and not let you do anything. I'm on your side here. I want you to have fun and make great memories with your friends and enjoy your life. We both want the same thing here. We just have a different perspective on what's going to create that because we have different life experiences. This negotiation that we're having right now is a normal and healthy part of human communication. When you can offer your teenager a new way of thinking about the interaction or situation rather than just screaming information at them, that's communicating insightfully. So that's relevance and shift, the two variables on the top of the insight equation. We want to maximize those. Now let's look at the variables on the bottom, blame and complexity. We'll start with blame. Your teen dented the car while backing it out of the garage. Our goal as a parent in situations like this should always be to help our child learn a lesson. It might be hard to see in the moment, but we actually have a much better chance of getting a message across to our teenager if we don't focus on blaming them for the accident. Instead of focusing on what they did wrong, emphasize that mistakes happen and look for an opportunity to shift their thinking. Hey, I remember when I was learning to drive, I had a few close calls too. It's part of the learning process. The important thing is that we learn from it. What do you think you could do differently next time to avoid something like this happening again? By taking the blame out of the equation, you create space for your teenager to reflect on their actions and grow. So that's blame, which is the variable we want to minimize. And there's also one more variable on the bottom of the insight equation, which is complexity. Imagine you just read a whole book on the dangers of vaping, and you are excited to share all these shocking facts with your teenager. But instead of scaring them straight, you're met with eye rolls and sighs. You're probably overwhelming them with too much information at once. Their brain is shutting down. To get your message across, you need to simplify it to 3 key takeaways max. For instance, vaping is highly addictive, very expensive, and illegal for minors. Have them repeat the 3 points back to you. Give them pop quizzes on it throughout the week. Hey, what were those 3 things about vaping? Then, once they've got it, next week, you can dive deeper into one of those 3, like addiction. By breaking your communication down into digestible chunks and delivering them one at a time, you make your message much easier for your teenager to grasp and internalize. Remember, the number one mistake parents make when trying to change their teen's mind is delivering information rather than insight. By using the insight equation, you can transform the way your teen thinks, make your message relevant, introduce a shift in thinking, minimize blame, and streamline the complexity. With these tools, you won't just change their behavior in the moment, you'll give them a whole new way of approaching problems. I know these strategies are easier said than done. It takes a lot of practice to break out of our default communication patterns, but I promise you, it's worth the effort. If you found this helpful, please like and share the video. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more science-backed tips on the wild world of parenting teenagers. Together, we've got this.